Okay, we're going to be drawing people now. We're going to start with Boxman, and I'm going to show you that I draw people quite a bit. This is one of mine. It's been a while since I've drawn him. I'm going to go through and explain how you draw people. The essence is always starting with your basic shapes. If you draw people with outlines, like you draw them like this, you will always end up failing because how do I shade this? He's not a 3D object, you're just drawing with outlines. And if you see somebody start drawing and they just seem to start drawing with the eyes and it just comes out amazing and it comes out perfect, then they're cheating. They're drawing on another layer like this and they're copying because there's no real way to come up with a drawing without actually drawing it with shapes. You'll never be able to understand how to draw it in perspective, shading won't work, the anatomy will fall apart. I'm going to show you how to actually solve all these problems. First of all, we're going to start with our pose. I'm just going to start with the largest object first, which is how we do everything in art. Draw my hips, and I'm just going to say knees, feet. I'm just going to give him a standard male pose. Now, this guy's really simple, but I want to explain a couple things with anatomy. I know that from the bottom of the pelvis to the top of the head is the same distance as the bottom of the pelvis to the bottom of the feet. See, that's how I know that he's a little long. Then I'm going to know that if I take the chest and I split it in half, that's how thick the legs should be. And then they get a little smaller, they taper as they go down. Now, as we go into it, I measure everything, instead of by the head, because people do 7.5 heads tall for people, I'm going to measure everything by the human hand. Because I believe the human hand is actually a far better reference for drawing. Because your face is one hand. Your neck is a hand sideways. So, like this. Your neck, your pecs, one hand by one hand. Your arm is, from the top, is 2 hands. The forearm, 2 hands, plus a hand. You have your chest, which is a hand. If I go from the neck, I have a hand, a hand, a hand, and then I have one more hand down to the pelvis. From the section of the hips, I have a hand, and a half a hand for the knee, because your legs are longer by a hand. 2 hands here, and if I go down on this side, I have 2 hands and a half a hand. And you start remembering these things, and if I divide the chest up by 3, that's the thickness of my arm. Now I'm going to go over here, and now that I've got, because you use your body to fix your references. You use them as references, because you can't just say, what's wrong with my character? You have to say, what's wrong in proportion to. My head, I know it fits inside my rib cage. Now, once I've got myself a model, like this guy, I know his legs are too long. There's a thing called contrapposto in art, and it says that whenever you're drawing something, that people want to stand, one leg is holding you up and the other leg is bent. And if you draw people with both legs straight and facing directly towards you, this kind of post system seems really unnatural. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate this guy into shapes. I'm going to say that I'm going to draw the largest section first. I'm going to say that I want my chest here. And then I'm going to say pelvis. And my legs, I'm just going to follow this line down. And I'm going to kick this leg out a little bit. And the thing is, don't worry about drawing this perfect, because this is what you start with, and then you fix it as you go. Lots of artists start, and they worry about all the wrong things. Especially I did. I worried about drawing things perfectly at first, when what you need to worry about is actually making sure that you're getting your proportions right. So draw it quick so that you can fix it. Now I know that my elbows, you have a rib cage right in here. It looks like this. My elbow goes slightly below my rib cage. So this right here, you see how I've cut this in half? Because the rib cage bends right about here, so this is a little bit lower. And I'm just drawing this with elongated boxes. And I'm going to draw my hand like this. It's just going to be a rectangle with another rectangle turned sideways, and later once you start to, we'll draw thumbs and hands, it'll be better, but right now I'm just going to draw this as a placeholder, and I'm going to move this arm in just a little bit, because the arm should go behind your person. And the thing is, whenever you're drawing these, don't just copy mine, try to learn your own technique, try to make your own character, make them unique. give them a different pose so that you're not just copying. The neck, if I split the body into thirds like this, that's the neck, and then the head should fit inside the torso, and I'm just going to draw that as a square. And then the feet, I'm just going to draw them as, if you imagine, kind of like triangles. They just get smaller towards the ends. I'm going to shrink his head just a little bit. And this gentleman here, he is very simple. But now I'm going to go through and I'm going to check his proportions. I'm going to say from here, and you're going to be doing this on paper, from here to here, if I scoot this line down, yep, looks like I need to make the legs a little bit longer. People who don't have Photoshop, which you should probably be doing this with paper so that you learn the paper techniques first. Scoot his legs a little bit longer. Now I'm going to just go through and start checking things. I'm going to say that my rib cage is in here. Alright, this guy's sitting alright. I can deal with him. This is the simplest drawing. And whenever you draw women, what you're going to do is, it's kind of like toppling blocks. Because women's center of balance, men's balance is right here in the solar plex. Women's balance is below. If I go into a rib cage diagram, because the hips are wider than the abs, their center of balance is here, meaning that their body here, and they're more flexible, meaning that instead of standing straight up, they topple. So if I draw my hips, which can be represented like this, I mean, they're more Mickey Mouse-eared things than this, but this will do. The legs bones stick out, their ribs, they kind of tilt like a falling hourglass. Their head goes the other way. And this knowledge that the tilt exists makes your people more believable. So if you're drawing a woman, all you have to do is say that men, from our armpits down to our legs, they don't poke out this way. They go straight down. Now women's are different because what they do is their rib cage cuts in at the very bottom of their rib cage, and then their hips go out because they're wider than their ribs. And then their hip bone sticks out, giving it a little more. You just round that out. And you see how I get a female proportion. So if I draw the same thing with boxes, I just shrink it in the middle. I'm not going to make her that thick. And then I make my hips wider. Practicing drawing people is the most difficult thing an artist can do, and that's why we have to try it the most, because most people just start doing landscapes because landscapes are so much easier. Not that landscapes can't be difficult, it's just they are easier than drawing people. People require a massive amount of anatomy. Alright, for the next video I'm going to show you a more complicated version of anatomy, and we'll be working from there.